Welcome, welcome. We've got about 2 minutes before we're going to get started. We are going to be starting sitting on a chair today. So hopefully you got my message about having a chair to sit on. So we'll be starting with that and also our Pilates ball or whatever you're using like a Pilates ball. Hopefully you have one of these by now. It's going to have some give to it, so make sure that it's not super, super hard. Mine's about 3/4 full. It's got some give for sure. You're going to have that ball. You're going to be sitting on that ball on your chair to start. Now, if you didn't have a chair, you could sit on this on the floor as well. So that's another option. Although if you can find a chair, I do recommend it for some of the things that we are going to be doing today. So if you're just joining me, hopefully you got the message. We'll be using a chair today. Something that's got a, I mean, if possible, it's not a super, super soft chair, but if it is, just use that today. And then you'll know for next time that something with a little bit of a sturdiness to it, a little bit of hardness to it is going to likely work a little bit better. So hopefully you got that message about a chair to sit on today. And we are going to be sitting on your chair on your Pilates ball to start today. Okay. We have about a minute left. For this first part, I'm going to come up pretty close. We're going to be doing a little pelvic floor myofascial work first, along with something called tapping. Now, tapping is a way to tap into some of the energetic lines of the body. And we're going to be doing it on our face to start. And I'll show you the points we're going to be tapping. Now, you can do it with one side at a time, or you can do both sides at the same time. Whatever works for you, you'll have time. I'll talk you through it. So I'm just going to briefly show you the points and then we'll do them together. So again, it might be both hands at the same time if you choose. It could be one side at a time if you choose. So we start, and I just like to do 2 fingers, and it's not a banging of your body. It's just a tapping, just bringing energy to the place. So it's going to be right to the inside of one or both eyebrows. The next place is right next to your nose. The next place is right underneath your nose above your upper lip. Then we do the chin and then the chest and then the top of the head. So eyebrows, inside of the eyebrows, by the nose, under the nose, chin, chest, and then we go to the head. And again, it's just a light tapping, it's bringing energy. And this is another way, there's so many ways, but this is another way that we can really start to tap into our parasympathetic system. So it's a way, some great thing to do before you go to bed. It's also a great thing to do, to start your day so that you're calm as you walk into your day. Yes, you want to be energized, but you don't want to be this kind of energy that's just out of control. So, all right. So we are going to go ahead and have a seat on that ball on your chair. And you do want your feet firmly planted. So hopefully you're able to allow for that. And so while you're sitting on this ball, there's some pelvic floor release happening all by itself. You don't even need to think about it, although I will help you also think about it once we get going. So first, we're just going to close down our eyes, sit as tall as you can in your spine, crown of the head reaching towards the sky. Roll those shoulders down and back, and then take a big belly breath in through the nose, and ideally out through the nose as well. Yet another way to tap into your parasympathetic nervous system, that recovery, rest, digest system, is to breathe in and out of your nose. So as you inhale, think of softening through your pelvic floor. And then as you exhale, it's just a slight lifting up of the pelvic floor, nothing aggressive. This is not Kegel. This is a lifting up of the pelvic floor, almost like you're trying to scoop that ball up inside of you ever so gently, like you were lifting up a spider web. So it's not like aggressive in any way, shape, or form. And then again, you inhale, soften, or relax. And then as you exhale, it's just a lifting of the pelvic floor, a slight contraction, like you're trying to pull that ball inside of you. And then again, we breathe, inhale, soften, and just continue like that. If it does not make sense, just breathe in and out. The ball is still doing some work for you just fine, even if you're not focusing on that contraction and that lifting up of the pelvic floor. So just keeping that nice tall spine. Let's take 3 more big breaths. Slow exhales. As you exhale, be careful you don't sink. Get longer through your spine. And if you are just joining us, we're sitting on our Pilates ball, on our chair. Another big breath in and out. Good. All right, so now we're going to go into that tapping. So again, you could do both at the same time, or you could do one at a time. We're gonna run through it twice. So if you wanna do one side at a time, that's great. Or you can do both sides and then you can just go through it twice. So again, those 2 fingers, just lightly tapping right to the inside of one or both eyebrows, your choice. I'd like to do one side at a time. It's just a preference. Tap, tap, tap. Right to the inside of the eyebrows. I'm going to come a little closer, or one eyebrow. And then we move to the outside of the nose. Just tap, tap, tap. It's light. You're not getting aggressive here. Just tap, 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 tap. Keep your eyes open or closed, your choice. And then right below the nose, above your lip, tap, tap, tap. Keep breathing, and then at your chin, tap, tap, tap. And then at the chest, tap, tap, tap. Keep breathing deeply, and then the top of the head. Tap, tap. Nice. If you're doing both sides, you'll just run through that again. If you were doing one side at a time, you'll switch sides. So I'm going to go to my left side now. Again, that's just a choice. I'm doing one side at a time. You could do both, not a problem. And it doesn't matter which side you start on if you're doing one at a time. Okay, and by the side of the nose, tap, tap, tap. Keep breathing. Right under your nose, above your lip. Tap, tap, tap. And to the chin. Keep breathing. And then at your chest. And the top of the head. And relax. You can just let those arms drop down. Let's take about 3 more big breaths in and out. One more big breath. Good. All right. We're going to remove that Pilates ball, and you're going to be taking your yoga tune-up ball, one of them, and outside of your toes. So it's a single ball. So I promised that we'd be working on our hip flexors today. So you're probably going to wonder why the first thing I'm going to have you do here is release your hamstrings. So I will tell you why. So we're going to take that ball. It's going to go right, kind of that connection point between your glute and your hamstring. For me, I like to turn sort of diagonal on my seat so I have more space. That's a choice. So I have more space to move here if I go diagonal, and I've got some room to move my leg around. So if I do that, if I've got a back on my chair, I can kind of lean back on it a little bit. Straighten and bend that leg, straighten and bend that leg. Okay. And you decide how much pressure is on there. So if I'm leaned back away, not as much pressure. If I'm leaned in, much more pressure. I could even put my own weight of my body on there if I wanted more, right? So if you're doing this and this particular spot is unbearable, please move it a little left, a little right, a little down, a little up. So you'll figure out where it's tolerable for you. This can be a really sticky spot. So as promised, why are we releasing the hamstrings? So here's the deal. If your hamstrings are tight, which many of us, our hamstrings are tight, the hip flexors will also become tight. So it all works together. It's like a protective mechanism that our body has going. So when we sit a lot, your hamstrings tighten up. When you sit a lot, your hip flexors tighten up. Our body wants to come into this erect, upright position so that if we have to run from the tiger, you always hear me say this, we are able to. So our body needs to be upright, be able to see straight ahead. If we're hunched over, if our hamstrings are yanking on us, if our hip flexors are causing us to come into a not great posture, because they're so tight, we're not going to be able to run as quickly from the tiger that might show up. So our body has this protective mechanism that happens. So if our hamstrings are tight or weak, which usually if they're tight, they're weak, your hip flexors are going to start locking down on you as a protective mechanism as well. So now we're just going to start to move that leg back and forth. So slide that ball. It goes left and right across that hamstring, upper hamstring where it connects into your glutes. So the other interesting thing about the hamstrings themselves, and again, everything all works together. You guys can keep doing that. If we have this tendency to have this sort of slouched posture, and unfortunately, because of the computers and the driving and the phones, we do, our body thinks we're falling forward. So it's going to tighten up those hamstrings and cause us, it's trying to help us stand upright. So it locks down those hamstrings. So if your posture is not ideal, your hamstrings will be tight no matter how many times you roll, how many times you stretch. You will continue to have issues with those hamstrings until you really correct the posture. So work on that. Get up from your desk, do your best to be tall in your spine, do your best not to slouch. Okay, we're going to move that ball down to the middle of the hamstring. So this is where I need a little more space because, the chair may not be quite long enough. So I've got to turn sideways. So we're going to do again that straighten and bend and straighten and bend. So our bodies are smart. They do what they need to do to protect us. So, we've got to really honor what we're experiencing. Sometimes things lock down and tighten up on us for a good reason. Our body is trying to get us to sit upright. Our body is trying to say, hey, you are slouched over. If a tiger shows up in your office, you're not going to be able to run. Straighten and bend, straighten and bend. The other thing you can do is sort of this internal and external rotation. So I just sweep my leg side to side. And then I can start to do that rolling of that ball across. So cross fiber work here, side to side. So as I mentioned earlier, if your hamstrings are tight, they're actually weak. I know that sounds crazy, but there's no way that your hamstrings or quads or biceps or triceps, or whatever, can function to its fullest capacity, contract to its fullest capacity if it is locked down. If the tissue is stuck, if it's tense, there's no way it can function to its fullest potential. So that's why this kind of work is so important. But then also, you need to strengthen these areas. So it's not just about getting them loosened up or unstuck. They will actually stay locked down on you if they're weak, because again, it's a protective mechanism that the body has. Now, if you're able, you'll move that ball down one more notch so it's closer to the knee. If you don't have the space for that, you just go the range you can. Remember, everything is all connected. So, you are affecting the whole hamstring fascia, even if you don't touch the whole area. Now, again, if there's a spot here that's really, really causing you to tense up, if you're having a tough time taking a deep breath, it's probably too much. So move it, back it off. Don't put as much pressure on there. Okay, and then we can do that side to side or internal and external rotation here again. You might come up with something else that seems like it's working even better for you. Kind of extend with the toes turned out, maybe extend with the toes kind of rotated in. Just play with it. Find what seems to be working best for you. All right. So we are going to switch to our second side. So let's start up high, right underneath that upper hamstring. And just take note, this side might be different. Don't assume you'll be able to put the same amount of pressure, or maybe on this side you need more pressure. So really pay attention. That's part of this practice. That's part of what makes it yoga. I go yoga because, yoga is really everything. Yoga is just a mindful practice. What makes this more yoga than just some form of stretching and rolling is that we're being mindful about it. Pay attention, take deep breath, feel what you're feeling, allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. Sometimes we even get emotions stuck in our tissues. So again, we can start to move that side to side, maybe some internal and external rotation of that knee and hip. Let's move that ball to the middle of the hamstring and continue. Straighten and bend, straighten and bend. And again, you could try a little turning out, like external rotation, internal rotation as you extend and bend. Maybe that's something that would serve you. Good. Nice work. And rolling that ball back and forth. Good. Yeah. So if you have knee issues, hip issues, back issues, getting these hamstrings to function properly for you, really important. And then we'll move that down one more notch so it's closer to the knee if that's possible. And if it's not, again, don't worry about it. You can just leave it where it is or move it back up high. Just know that you're still affecting the whole thing. It's all connected. So just know that. Fine. Good. You guys look good. Yeah. Nice. Keep breathing. So know that by releasing these hamstrings, you are helping your hip flexors function more properly, although we are going to tap into those hip flexors directly as well in just a bit. Just a few more breaths. And I think it's maybe it's common knowledge, maybe not. It certainly is in my world that hamstrings and hip flexors are absolutely very, very oftentimes connected to lower back pain. So if you've got some issues going on with the lower back, I definitely recommend noticing what's happening with both your hip flexors and your hamstrings. All right, we're going to set that ball off to the side. All right. We're going to take the right ankle over the left thigh here. So it's a figure 4 shape. A lot of times people think their hip flexors are the ones back here in their glutes. Those are not your hip flexors. Your hip flexors are actually in the front. But yes, the glutes are all connected in this whole system. So we do want to address the glute area as well. So from here, we're going to be moving in and out of a stretch. So what we do not want is this to happen. So if it turns out that you only move 1 centimeter forward and then back out, that is better than rounding to get closer to your leg. So lift the chest, roll those shoulders back, and then hinge from your hips to come forward, come in and out of this stretch. So we're doing a dynamic stretch. That's a stretch with movement. So you can decide where this bottom foot needs to be. If possible, you can see I've got about a 90-degree there. Some of you might need to have it a little closer to be able to actually cross that thigh, or a little farther away. You'll decide. So in and out. Now you can play with the angle. So maybe I angle it more towards my foot and do that a few times. That's going to feel a little different than coming right over my shin. And then maybe I try coming over the knee a little bit. That's going to feel a little different than what it felt like coming straight over the shin. Maybe I can move more. Maybe I can't move as far. And a couple more times here. And good. Okay. So from here, you're going to take that right thigh and completely cross it like you're sitting with a skirt on. So I'm going to turn my body to the right. Now, when you turn, you're going to think of rotating from your middle back, not the lower back. Okay. So if you have a back on your chair, you can use that, or you can use the side of your chair. Left hand comes to this outer thigh, and I'm going to take a deep breath. As I rotate, I'm going to rotate my right ribs back, my left ribs forward. So think of rotating from the middle back. Now, you'll hear a lot of teachers say, keep the length in your spine. I'm going to say the opposite, not intentionally slouch, but let your natural rhythm of your spine, which is a little bit of softening, happen. So there's a slight rounding of that upper back so that you can access your middle back here. Now, if you stay way up tall like this, you're going to be twisting into the lower back, and that is not what we're going for. Your lower back is the stable part of your spine. Your middle back is supposed to be mobile. So again, oftentimes things will show up in the lower back because of other areas not having mobility. That could be your hips, your hip flexors, your hamstrings. It could be your middle back. If your middle back has lost mobility, your neck and or your lower back can suffer. Getting movement into the middle back is what we're doing here. We'll carefully come all the way back to center, unwind those legs. We're going to take those feet wide, and you're going to drop your body right down through the middle to any degree. Now, if you can't easily reach the floor, you may want to grab a block or two. Okay. So if you're not able to reach the floor, you're reaching, you're dangling, then support yourself. Okay. You might feel some inner thigh here. You might feel some lower back. I don't want you to be aggressive about this. So that's why I'm saying, please support here in some fashion. If it's 1 block, 2 blocks, maybe they're even not at highest setting. Maybe you're way up here, and that is fine. 3 more breaths. And then we'll carefully walk ourselves back up. And then the left ankle crosses over the right thigh. So we're back to that figure 4 where we move in and out. We move in and out. Good. Again, a long spine. We're not letting our box round on this one. There's very few times you'll hear me say round your spine or let your upper back round. And the only one in this circumstance is that one where we rotate. So right now, chest is lifted. We're hinging from the hips. Even if you literally move 1 centimeter and then move back out, that's better than rounding. So change the angle. Maybe you lean towards your foot now. That's gonna feel different. In and out. Move in and out. Good. Maybe you try a few over the knee. All right, we're going to take that one where we completely cross those thighs now. I'm gonna rotate to the left. Now this is the one where I say it's fine for your upper back to slightly round. So take a deep breath in. As you exhale, think left ribs back, right ribs forward, and there's a slight rounding of that upper back so you can access the middle back. Sometimes it's just about paying attention to what you're doing that will allow you to feel this where you should be feeling it. The body will always find that path of least resistance or that path that we always go by habit if we don't pay attention. Okay, we'll come out of that. All right, so we're going to take those feet wide again. And this is another place where you may want a block. If you're not easily able to catch your ankle down here or easily able to put your hand on the ground, I recommend a block. Okay, so I'm going to use a block. I just find it more comfortable in my body, and it can be whatever setting makes sense for you. Maybe it's way up high. Okay, and it could even be a couple of blocks stacked if you need that. Hand is on the block. I'm going to put my left hand on there. It's right next to my inner ankle. I'm bringing my right hand to my left hand. I'm rotating through my middle back, and then I bring my elbow towards the sky. Now, if my arm is okay, my shoulder's not irritated, I'm then gonna reach my right hand up. I might even rotate more, and then I bend my elbow, and then I rotate back. Now, if my shoulder doesn't like the reach, I just go to this point with the elbow reaching towards the ceiling or even beyond that. Again, if my arm is okay, my shoulder is okay, I'll reach it past that. And then we return, rotate back. Rotate elbow up, maybe reach, elbow bends, rotate, elbow up, maybe reach. Again, don't push through anything sharp in that shoulder. And then we rotate back down. We'll do that 2 more times. Elbow, maybe reach, elbow, rotate down, elbow. And again, maybe you just pause here and stay, no reach, and then rotate back down. All right, so carefully make your way back up. Take a nice big breath in and out before we switch sides. And then we take it to side number 2. Placing the block if you'd like, hand on the block. All right, Left hand, we rotate it toward that right hand. Elbow, maybe that's where we stay. Perhaps we continue to reach. And then we rotate back down and then up. And then again, maybe reach, or maybe you just stop with the elbow reaching up there. Good. Continue to move. Elbow, reach. Good. You want to add some breath, I recommend it. Inhale as you expand and open. Exhale as you rotate back down. 2 more times. Inhale, reach. Exhale, rotate. 1 more time. Inhale up. And exhale down. Good. And we'll carefully make our way back up. Take a breath in and a breath out. Okay, good. We're going to make our way to our mats now. We're going to be using that Pilates ball again. So our hip flexors, most of us think of our hip flexors, if you're familiar at all, as this area right here, the part that connects our leg to our torso, right? So that is true. But believe it or not, those hip flexors go all the way up to way up here, connect into your spine up by your rib cage. So if you're not addressing the part of your hip flexors that are up in here, you're only dealing with half of your hip flexors. So you could stretch this part till you're blue in the face, but if you don't deal with this, you're not going to have a change happen. So we're going to place that ball on the belly and we're going to lay on it. So this is one of those ones that you'll have to determine how much or how little air should be in that ball for you. So we're going to place it on the belly, and it can go anywhere on your belly. You're going to be addressing those hip flexors no matter where you put it. It can be all the way up, like tucked underneath your rib cage a little bit. You'll decide if you're going to keep your elbows on the ground or if you're going to lay your head down. And the first thing we're going to do here is just simply breathe. Okay, so you'll decide if you want to be forehead on the backs of the hands, or if you're just going to come up on those forearms. Either way is perfect. Take some deep breaths. You'll feel your belly press against the ball. And then it's really, really important you completely exhale so that that ball really sinks deeply into your body. Breathing in and completely exhaling, letting that ball sink into your body. Breathing in. Exhale completely. Breathing out. Breathing in. And breathing out. Completely exhale. One more just like that. Complete exhale. All right. So I recommend coming onto your forearms now as you just start to shift your hips left and right. I'll show you this from a few different angles. So I'm going to turn my body here so you can see what it looks like from the side. So I'm just going to shift those hips left and right so that ball is traveling across my belly. So additional things that are happening here besides the wonderful releasing of those hip flexors, this is where the majority of your lymph lives. So you're stimulating your lymph system, which is, of course, your system that fights off disease. So this is a great way to keep yourself healthy. It helps with digestion as well. So many great benefits. Last week we talked about the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is in here, so you're tapping into that again. This is going to help you with your recovery system. So the next time that ball shifts to the right, it's gonna stay to the right of your belly button. You'll notice it's kind of pooching out to the side, and then bend your right knee out to the side and then lay your body back down. So what's happening here now is there's this sort of lateral tugging of the tissue. So as it pooches out to the side, it should be pulling kind of laterally on your belly tissue. And again, tapping into those hip flexors as you breathe. You'll exhale and feel that ball just tugging a little bit laterally. 5 big breaths. Letting go with every exhale. Let yourself feel what you feel, whether it be a physical feeling or something otherwise. Good. Move through that. The only thing that is not good would be something that makes it so you cannot take a deep breath. Begin to re-extend that right leg. And we'll move that ball over to the left side. So it pooches out to the left. My left knee bends out to the side now. Same thing. Breathe. Full breaths in and complete breaths out. So remember that exhale is the part where it just kind of melts deeper into you and tugs a little laterally on your belly, which will help those hip flexors soften. So I've talked the last couple of weeks about this gal, Louise Hay, who has written a whole list of how our body ailments, physical ailments, relate to emotional things happening. And the hip are our major thrust in moving forward. So if we're kind of fearful of moving forward or fearful of the future, or we're fearing a major decision, sometimes we start to have tension in the hip. So if any of that resonates with you, what you can do is just do this myofascial release work on the hip area and breathe into that. Sometimes just that alone will move that energy. But you can also add an affirmation of my body is carried in perfect balance. My body easily moves forward. My life easily moves forward. I am moving in the right direction. Whatever resonates with you, you make up your affirmation that resonates with you, and then just let that really wash over you. Right, one more big breath in and out. And then bring that ball back to your middle of your belly. And then either tuck your toes, or this can be done from the knees as well. You're going to make circles. You can make the circle as big or as small as makes sense for you. It can literally come all the way to your pubic bone and all the way up over your rib cage, or it can stay right over your belly button. You decide. A few times each direction, 3, 4, 5 maybe, and then go the other way. Big breaths in and out. After your next one, make sure you're evened out. Go ahead and remove that ball, set it off to the side. laying on your belly, bring your forehead to the backs of your hands. Feel what you feel. And then take a breath in. Open your mouth and let it go. Let that energy move through you. Good. All right. So just for a moment, bring your hips back towards your heels in the direction of a child pose. If that doesn't work on your knees, you do what does. Maybe your hips stay high. If you're able to bring your hips all the way back towards your heels, that's also fine. Just breathing into the lower back a bit. All right. So let's go ahead and place your balls back inside their tote. So inside, make sure your tote is locked down so that they don't escape. We're going to be releasing the front of your thighs now all the way up to your hip flexor on the top of your thigh. So we're going to start low. So we're going to start right above the knee. We'll be laying down and putting the pressure on these balls right above your knee. So go ahead and lay your body down. Now you determine how much pressure is on there. If I'm kind of leaned over to the right, if the balls are on my right side, then I'm going to put more pressure on. If I'm leaned a little bit more to the left, then there's less pressure. So for now, we're going to find a position that works. Lay your head down, support your head with the backs of your hands or pillow or whatever you'd like, and then bend and straighten the right leg. So again, those tune-up balls are just above the knee, not on the knee itself, but just above on the quadricep. Bend and straighten the leg. And then extend that leg straight out and shimmy the leg back and forth. So the leg is straight and we shimmy it back and forth. Again, some cross fiber work here. And then from here, start to make your way a little bit onto your forearms. I like to support myself with this left knee on the ground now. Engage your core just enough for some support. We're gonna roll up and down here, whatever feels comfortable for you. You're just going maybe 4 to 6 inches above your knee. Just a short range right here. We are gonna keep moving our way up. Right now, you're just 4 to 6 inches above the knee. Okay, we're gonna lay back down and let's move the balls to the middle of your quadriceps now. Lay all the way back down and then maybe you re-extend that left leg. We go back to the bending and straightening. And you'll notice if you flex your ankle, that might feel a little different than if you're pointing your toes. For some of you, it won't make a difference, but see what you think. One or the other might be more comfortable or one or the other might be serving you better. And one more time, and then extend your right leg out and shimmy your leg back and forth across those balls. Now, if you're doing this and oh my gosh, it is just so much, it's too much. What you could do is give yourself a little bit less by, well, you could put more cushion between you and the balls that's going to absorb. So you could be on carpet or maybe you roll your mat over a couple more times. That will absorb some of it. The other option is to actually, this will only work for the bending and straightening, not so much for the rolling. You could put a towel between you and the balls. Okay? If none of that is working, you could sit up and kind of just use your balls like a rolling pin like this. Okay, so just know there's options. We are going to go ahead and roll now. So I like to bring that left knee up so I'm supported. My core is tight, so I'm not gonna hurt my back. And then just rolling again, right in the middle of the quadricep. Keep breathing. So we're gonna move the balls up a little higher now. Now we're getting up to where we consider the lower part of the hip flexor, so the top of the quadricep into the hip flexors, high up on your leg here, and we do the same thing. So we bend and straighten, bend and straighten. For me, I like to turn a little bit to the right now. You'll see I'm kind of leaned to the right. That allows me to access this a little bit better. That's what I need. That may or may not be what you need. But the balls are definitely towards the top of the thigh now. And then we shimmy that straight leg again, back and forth across the balls there, side to side. Keep breathing. All right, so we're gonna roll again. So up and down, engage that core a little bit so you're taking care of your lower back. Don't forget, if this is all just too much for you on your back, maybe you do the rolling pin maneuver. Hey, it's fine. Maybe even support yourself by coming up to a wall or something. So you're not even having to hold yourself up and do that rolling pin. All right, good. So let's set the balls off to the side. We're going to be moving into a few different stretches for this right thigh now. First one we're going to be doing, you're going to be laying down on your right side, and I'm going to turn my back to you here so you can see what's happening. I like to have a block for support in front of me for my left leg that's going to come forward. Now, some of you are going to be able to reach around and catch this foot, no problem. If you can't reach it, you'll want to use a strap. So I'm taking a hold of my right foot, either the foot or by a strap, so I can stretch it's the bottom leg. So I'm not grabbing the top leg, it's the bottom leg, and then the left leg is forward in front of me. Maybe my knee is on there, or maybe my foot is on there. And then I'm going to continue to inch my leg back so that I'm getting into the quadricep and hip flexor, but I'm not trying to do too much into the back here. So engage the core, do a little bit of flexion, so that's this, so that I'm not just coming into a big, big arch in my back, okay? So quadriceps and hip flexors here, that's what we're addressing. And then we're breathing. So some of you may have read what I mentioned about the hip flexor being they call it the muscle of the soul. So our hip flexors are very connected with us emotionally. So what I mean by that is when we are in sort of a stressful situation or a even perceived stressful situation, which unfortunately we live in that a lot right now. So our bodies tend to live in a fight or flight state when they don't need to be. There's no tiger coming through the door. Our life is not at risk, but unfortunately we pile the work on ourselves, the phone's ringing, we're texting, we're looking at Facebook, we're looking at this, we're looking at that. We've got to try to get the workout in. We try to do this. We try to 1,000. They own the family is calling, and now it's Christmas, and I don't have enough Christmas presents, and I've got to do this and that. And so we live in this fight or flight state. Well, our hip flexors lock up when that happens. That is the reaction of our hip flexors. So if you tend to live in a fight or flight state most of the time, your hip flexors are going to stay pretty locked down on you. So Again, coming into some of those affirmations, I'm fine, everything will get done. Okay, in time, everything will get done. Whatever's happening is happening for me, not to me. Whatever the affirmation is that makes sense for you. Go ahead and release that leg. All right, so we're going to transition to our second side. We're going to use the balls on our second side. If you need to do anything in between, you can come and do a cat-cow. That might feel good on your back. You can do that, but when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and place the balls right above the left knee this time. And we're going to start with the bend and straighten of the leg. Bend and straighten, bend and straighten. So what I'm saying is there's so many reasons our bodies can come into this state of tension. It can be a physical reason. Absolutely. I mean, if you've ridden your bike, 100 miles, your hip flexors are going to be tight. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But if you are just stressed out and there's no quote unquote reason, your hip flexors might lock down on you for that reason as well. So we can address it the same. We do myofascial release. We do affirmations. We do things for ourselves that allow our body to recover. Deep breathing is one of the big ones. And your deep breathing, of course, will absolutely affect your torso, and your hip flexors are in there, remember. So deep diaphragmatic breathing is going to help you. Even if you did nothing else, deep diaphragmatic diaphragm breathing is going to be helpful. Shimmy that leg, straight leg, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then we're going to roll up and down just a few inches, 4 to 6 inches right above the knee. Core is tight. Don't let that come into the lower back. Now remember, don't be afraid to do the rolling pin maneuver if this is not working for you. This can be a lot. I understand that. It can be a lot. It can be a lot if you've worked those legs really hard. It can be a lot if you've, locked down because you've been sitting a lot. Let's move those balls right to the middle of your thigh. Bend and straighten, bend and straighten. It can be a lot if your body is trying to protect you because maybe your posture is not what it should be ideally. So be aware that this can be pretty intense, but I can tell you one thing for sure. If you do it consistently, it gets better. I promise you it gets better. Let's straighten that leg and shimmy it side to side. Keep breathing. And oftentimes one side is different than the other. I'm really feeling this side in comparison to the other side. And I don't need to figure out why. I just know that it is. And so I'm going to really honor that and maybe not go as deep. And then we're going to move that ball or up and down, up and down. So we're rolling it about 4 to 6 inches in the middle of the thigh. And at the same time, if I'm able, if one side seems like it's needing more time, I spend more time on that side. I recommend 90 seconds to a max of really 5 minutes in an area. If you're needing more than that, it's probably best to just come back to it tomorrow. All right, we'll bring it to the top of your thigh. I like to lean a little to the left for this one. Bend and straighten, bend and straighten, bend and straighten. Straighten out that leg, shimmy, shimmy that leg side to side. And then we roll up and down, up and down, up the top of that thigh. Keep breathing. Keep connecting with whatever affirmation really resonates with you. All right. Laying down on your left side now. And we're going to be taking a hold of the left foot. So that's the bottom leg. You could put a block underneath your right knee in front of you if you'd like, or leg. It's a choice. You could take it or leave it. Either grabbing that bottom left foot with your hand, or perhaps you're using a strap. Keep edging that foot and knee backwards. So you're really getting a nice stretch in the quad, but then that little tuck under so it doesn't come into the lower back. Okay, so that tuck under, what I'm saying is don't let this big extension happen. Do a little tuck under so that it's staying in the quadricep, it's staying in the hip flexor, and not coming so much into the lower back. My life is moving forward smoothly. I make good decisions. The answers will come to me. Whatever affirmation makes sense for you right now. If you're having tension in this area, maybe it's connected with something happening emotionally for you. And if not, then just breathe. Just breathe. Just a couple more breaths. Very gently release that foot and find your way onto your back. So we're going to take the right ankle over the left thigh again. And then we're going to rock side to side. So you're going to find the range of motion that feels appropriate for you and your back. So maybe you come all the way over. Maybe you don't. A little back, a little hip. Now you can continue to do exactly this, or you can cross your legs more, again, like I said, kind of like you're sitting with a skirt on, and then continue to rock back and forth. Now, if you'd like, you can pause, whether you're in this or the figure four shape, for a breath or two on one side, rather than just continue rocking, maybe 1 or 2 breaths here. And then switching, maybe a couple of breaths on this other side. Or you can absolutely just continue to move back and forth, or that's what feels appropriate for you. Let's take it to our second side. Left ankle over the right thigh. Take the figure four shape first before we get deeper, which is the crossed leg. So rocking back and forth, side to side, slowly. Keep breathing. Maybe you close your eyes. I always feel more when my eyes are closed. Option to cross those legs a little more, like you're sitting with a skirt. Option to pause as you go one way. And then maybe pause as you transition and go the other way. Or maybe it feels best to just keep moving. All right, let's pause, unwind those legs. I'm gonna have you place your Pilates ball at your tailbone underneath you for your Shavasana today. So hips are above your heart. Anytime that happens, it also will help move you into that rest, digest, recover state. So once you find a comfortable place for that ball, again, it's not on my lower back, it's on my tailbone. I'm keeping my knees bent, more supportive. Take a nice big belly breath in. And this time, open your mouth and sigh it out. Let it go. Let your body melt into the earth. Feel yourself completely 100% supported by the earth here. I do highly recommend, if you can, taking a nice 5 or more minutes Shavasana. We don't get much opportunity to just be. We do, but we rarely get to just be. Give yourself this gift if you can. Just be. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste, my friends.